Hi, everyone. We're here with Gary Koepke and Adrian Slobin from SapientNitro, and we're talking today a little bit about virtual reality. Um, I guess my first question is, you guys have a pretty cool demo going on here at Cannes this year in terms of virtual reality, and I wanted to ask you, how do you see what you're doing fitting into kind of the overall conversation that's being had in regards to virtual reality and where it's going, and maybe in terms of what other companies are doing as well in the space?
Sure. So yeah, obviously, virtual reality has taken a huge bump in the sort of trend line. Every day, every minute, there's new news coming out about either a new technology or a new application of existing technology. And where we want to play in the conversation is really focused on retail, right? So there's been a lot of energy and interest in gaming and entertainment, but we think the retail space and treating virtual reality as an opportunity for not just experience but commerce and transaction is going to be key. So that's where our sort of angle is, if you will. That's where we're talking to clients, and that's where we're trying to experiment in the early days of virtual reality and commerce.
So then, I guess, Gary, this might be a question for you. What are the benefits of the virtual reality experience in terms of branding? What does it bring apart from maybe some of the other platforms or capabilities that are available that really gives the consumer a new edge to the experience, or something that maybe they didn't expect in their kind of purchase pretzel, let's call it, because it's no longer really a cycle. So.
Well, I think what virtual reality does is it allows the consumer, well, the brand actually, to tell their story in a deeper way, in a more emotional way. They can create an environment, create an emotional pull on the audience they're trying to reach, and continue their brand story in a deeper way that the website can't really do and social media can't really do. You can talk about your story in social media, which they do a very good job of, and online you can talk about it, but it's really hard to get the consumer emotionally involved like you can in a retail space. And I believe that VR brings a lot of that presence to the situation, and it really basically just allows them to tell their story in a deeper way.
Great, and that transitions really well into the content side of it. So what are the types of content that you think are really suitable to this experience, and how does that content then fit into let's say the overall ecosystem, and keeping your voice and your brand consistent throughout all of the platforms? Maybe if we could talk a little bit just about the content itself in the experiences.
Sure.
I don't know who wants to.
I can take a run at it and then
Go for it.
So, the first thing, as Gary was mentioning, is the idea that you can tell the brand story more effectively. The kind of content that we think is going to play well in the virtual space is content in context, right? So, for example, if you're selling tents, right? Today, you can look at specs, you can look at ratings and reviews, you can look at images, you can rotate those flat images. Now imagine being in a campsite in a virtual world and seeing the context for that product. So the kind of content that we think is going to be created is going to be that rich, immersive, contextual content that will surround products and help consumers understand not only what the thing is that they want, but also the adjacencies to what they want, right? I need a tent, but I also need, a Bunsen burner. I also need, a windbreaker. And you can see all of that content in this rich, realistic environment. I think about content, the sort of the revolution in content that's coming, similar to the web in '95, right? So you have a browser all of a sudden, and instead of looking at lines of code, you're for the first time seeing the internet in a rich sort of much richer content. This is a similar sort of sea change, where you're now being able to not just see flat images, but completely surround yourself, quite literally, with great new content. I don't know if you want to.
Yeah. If we stay with the camping metaphor, you can also show how it goes together, how the tent gets assembled, and because some tents are assembled differently, and you always wonder, well, I wonder if this will be easy to assemble when I get it home, or when it comes to my door. But now you could be in a virtual space, see somebody assemble it, how it really is put to use, how many people it holds comfortably. A lot of tents will say, well, it holds 2 people, but maybe it holds 3, and that may be enough for your family. So it gives you a lot more breadth in and scope for defining what your products are, whether it's a washing machine, even a microwave oven, or clothes, just trying on clothes. Maybe we can create body types in virtual reality that wear clothes that, that's my body type, and I like the way he looks in that stuff, so I think I'll buy it. So it gives you, the brands, so much more versatility in a interesting way. Because you think of a campsite, you can say, well, we can show a campsite on the internet, but it's really not as interesting as if you're walking around and maybe a bear walks by and it's like, ooh, this is fun, this is cool, and the fire is burning, and you get a sense of really being there. And it probably helps you actually take that trip even, rather than maybe get it and then, I don't know if we're going to go camping or not, So it's really, really encouraging to me to see what that virtual reality can really stimulate the senses in many ways.
Just if I can add one more thing that I think is going to be really important. A lot of brands and retailers want to tell the backstory of a product, right? So if you think what major retailers in the U.S. do, where they will occasionally have designers come in and design products specifically for them. Well, there's a lot of content, a lot of media generated around that backstory. But imagine if you're trying to sell a designer apparel in a big box retailer, and you can take the consumer to the studio in Italy where that work is done, where the fabric is being selected. Imagine being able to sort of introduce that designer in a much richer, more exciting way than they can today. So I think from your content question, I think you're going to see a lot deeper, richer content around product backstories as well in this retail environment, virtual retail environment.
Great. So for brands, I guess when thinking about virtual reality, the technologies that are required to produce these experiences are still quite a bit extensive, and maybe not as socially acceptable, let's say, to like walk around, as Sean Rad was saying, walk around with goggles on. But I'm curious to hear where do you think the tipping point will be in terms of ROI, in terms of return on investment, when maybe brands are trying to decide whether they should jump into the space and what they feel they'll get out of it. Where's that tipping point when we'll see more and more of them kind of taking the dive, so to speak?
So I guess I'll answer the tipping point question in a couple ways. One is that in the actual devices are going to be ubiquitous within 18 months, right? They're going to be for free or cheap. They're going to be in everyone's home. They're already in many ways in your pocket, given the mobile-enabled cell phones that are out there on the market. In terms of ROI, the cost for doing sort of virtual reality experiences is not that high compared to the investments that have already been made in, say, e-commerce or mobile commerce, right? And so the thought is these experiences are going to sit on top of existing platforms. You're not going to have a retailer create a brand new solution for virtual retail. That's never going to work, right? So think of this as a front end in the same way that the web or mobile is a front end on top of an existing commerce ecosystem. That means that the bar for ROI is a bit lower, right? When you're investing hundreds of millions of dollars in a new e-commerce engine, the ROI has to be substantial. Brands are not going to be investing hundreds of millions of dollars in VR, right? It's just not that costly to do the front end side, if you want to.
Yeah, plus it'll be an extension of their broadcast in a lot of ways. If you think of typical automotive ads, they generally show the car driving around. And now you could be in the car, you could walk around the car, you can pretty much test drive it in many ways. You might have to put your hands up like you're driving so you don't get motion sickness, but it's really going to be probably worthwhile to extend the experience to similar to the camping we talked about. I think it's going to come through gaming. They're going to ship how many? About 50 million headsets. Yeah. And gamers will be using it, and they'll probably be the early adopters into testing this market. And I think very quickly we'll see people wanting to take these experiences willingly.
I think my last question is when brands are then deciding whether they whether they should or should not delve into VR. Can you talk a little bit about utility versus experience, like doing it just for, how do they balance the idea of, we're doing this because it really solves a problem, and that's something that fits with our brand or what our consumers are asking for, and the other side of it, which is, we're doing this just for experience sake. We're doing this to so that our brand is at the forefront and doing just, simple, cool things rather than actually solving some kind of problem or need of the consumer.
Well, I like an example for someone like Blake Makowski and Tom's one-for-one method. And, everybody that buys his shoes would love to go to Africa and see him handing them out to the kids and enriching people's lives. And so that really for him is worthwhile, because his consumers, his fans, all the people that love that product shop there because of what he does with the product, whether it's his sunglasses or whether it's shoes. He goes to Africa or South America and he hands them out to people that need them. And that's a big event, and sometimes people do go, but not everybody gets to go that buys the stuff. So I think that's a really good example of how a brand could get people more involved in their story in a way that is enriching to the fans of the brand.
And I think I'd answer that question in a couple ways. I think experience is going to lead, and it's going to be much more trying to engage consumers, not because brands are solving a need that consumers have, because consumers frankly don't know enough about the virtual space yet to know that there would be needs to be solved. So there's going to be a pull factor where cool content, cool experiences, sitting in the front row of a Paris fashion show, or sitting ringside at the the next big boxing match, right? Getting people to experience that is going to be the sort of the initial drive for adoption. I think once people are used to strapping on the headsets and being in these virtual worlds, you're going to start to see the utility story play out, right? And needs are going to be uncovered. Gary mentioned the product description. How do products work? How do you actually put together a tent? How do you use this tool that you might buy at a home goods store? That utility is going to come into play, but I think it's further out.
If I could add to that. I also think brands will think of new ways to sponsor interesting things. I don't think that they have to stick to just their products. For instance, like Coca-Cola, they could deliver an experience of being on stage with a famous rock band, and you get to walk around while Coldplay is playing or somebody like that, or Kings of Leon, and it's brought to you by Coca-Cola, and they open happiness and they send it to you on your phone, and you pop it in and you get to experience something like that. And so I think they'll find new ways to create interesting content for their consumers. It doesn't only have to be about their brands.
And I know I said last question, but actually something that you said really sparked some interest. I think I would just like to hear from you guys. So then, do you see maybe agencies or brands that are pushing to try VR, or at least test the waters now at kind of the beginning of it? Do you see them as playing a really key role in informing consumers about the technologies that are available in the world, and maybe sparking their interest in how everything is developing, past just commerce or marketing or our industry?
You want to?
No, go ahead.
Okay, so agencies are going to play a critical role because agencies are brought to the table to tell the brand story, and this is a new medium for telling that story. So I think we play a vital role in advertising the value of VR and v-retail in particular.
Yeah. As an agency, and an agency that's known for developing technology. Yes, we can create the e-commerce experience in the virtual reality, but we also like to work on combining technology with the story and creating a stronger, more emotional experience through technology, because it delivers a lot of our media. In fact, it delivers all of our media. Now, print media is probably the last one that's, but everything else is digital. So we feel that agencies will, particularly us, will be more and more interested in telling the brand story with our technology.
Great. Well, thank you guys so much.
Thank you. Enjoyed it.
Thanks.